bureaucrat for Planet Express.
Something like that. That was the audition stuff?
Yeah, that's the audition.
That's what I got hired to do.
And then like after 3 episodes, everyone realized that's what we were doing.
So you were going to be Dexter. What a dumb name for a show. Never be successful.
First they changed the name because they realized there were too many characters whose names ended in "er." It was Nibbler, Bender, Dexter. Like, okay, guys, we're stuck in a rut. So then they changed. I don't know where they got her names. But
I'm glad they did, because that's the most perfect fitting name for it.
I guess. Well, it's weird. It's like, I think it was actually 3 or 4. We finished recording Matt Groening stopped me in the hall and said, "Hey Phil, can you do a Jamaican accent?" And I'm like, and I knew the character wasn't working, so when you hear that question from the executive producer, you're like, ooh, you know, there's a pendulum with a blade above your head. Why, yes, yes I can.
You gotta be whatever they ask for. It better be. You won't work. You gotta be able. I hate to say this, but you gotta be able to do everything if you want to keep working. It's like, can you do? I'll tell you one thing. Rick Dempsey at Disney Character Voices. He's looking all over town because they're gonna do a dinosaur video game from the movie Dinosaur, and Della Reese wouldn't do it. No, she had enough. You know, so like Rick Dempsey's going to every black person in town trying to find someone to replace her, and he wasn't having any luck because she has this really masculinized female voice. So he calls up my DPN, and he goes, "Jeff, I know this is like whacked out, but is there like any chance like could Billy West do Della Reese?" Yes. Yes,
we need someone with talent and no sense of shame.
Right. Who's not afraid to put women out of town. Out of work and out of town. It's very flaccid. Look at that. That's right. No, that's Bender's.
Oh, hi.
Hi. I forgot you were here.
It's like a podcast. Oh, sorry. All right, we're already started. This is just what we do. We don't really like have an introduction or anything.
Yeah, it's informal. You're all in my pine-paneled rumpus room in my basement. We're going to put some crate room and have fun.
And actually, we're just going to listen in on a conversation that Billy and I have been needing to have for a couple of fucking years.
You sound a little hostile here out there.
I'm so sorry.
You sound very resentful.
We're on cable. So if anytime we swear, just beep it in your mind. Or pretend it's South Park.
No, the swearing, the governor on swearing is every now and then you'll hear, and you go, oh. Oh, darn it. God, that's going to reverberate in that little head for the next 20 years.
Actually, let's all go back in time to when Futurama was on at 7 o'clock on Sundays.
Yeah, remember the promos? Remember the promos for that? They used to say, like, they weren't too happy about having that show on the air for some stupid reason.
I'll tell you.
Well, loggerheads. Well, they were loggerheads with Matt, right?
Exactly.
But the thing was, is they were like doing these little passive-aggressive things like the announcer, the big dumb announcer was mine. Fox, Sunday nights. He said, 7 o'clock Futurama, 7:30, an all-new Simpsons, followed by Malcolm in the Middle, and then another rerun, or King of the Hill, and a reprise of Simpsons special, you know. And the fun begins at 7:30.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe what I was hearing. It's like, this dumb announcer actually read that, so someone wrote it for him, and it came from here.
It's like, yes, don't include.
I wish I could go back in time and break his jaw.
Don't blame the master. Here's my theory.
Okay.
Was the Simpsons had basically built the network. You know, it was a huge, huge thing. And at that point, I guess the network was probably going on maybe 10 years old when we started. We started a little less.
We started actually in 1999.
So Fox was about 10 years. And so it was now a real network, built on the foundation of The Simpsons. Like Matt Groening had built the network. And so there were all these executives who had not. Like the people who were running Fox when Futurama came out were not the people who started Fox. They didn't build it, they had no stake in it. They were not the 800-pound gorilla that Matt was. They couldn't give notes on The Simpsons. It's like, well, we think you think what? You think you can start a network? No, I don't think so. So, I mean, The Simpsons was untouchable. But when Matt came up with Futurama with David Cohen, all of a sudden, there was a vulnerability. Oh, this new show. It's like, yeah, no, we're really happy to see what you've done, man. And so then it started almost being like, well, it's not really what we, it's like, oh, it's not The Simpsons. Yeah, that's what the problem is. Because they wanted another Simpsons. Like, well, you already have one. So they just kept picking whatever they could at the Futurama. Like, they put us on at 7 o'clock. It's like, we're not going to be on after his other show? Yeah, no.
You make everyone sound like Mr. Burns.
Exactly. Well, that's what they are. They're like 23-year-old Mr. Burns.
There you go.
And so, like, you know, remember they nickel and dimed us. Originally, Charlie Schlatter was cast as Fry. Nicole Sullivan was cast as Leela. And they're like, yeah, no, not really. And it was one of those things where, like, there's not really a problem, but the network wants, yeah, we need to make some changes. And so it was like they made him go back to casting. And I looked back and it's like, oh, Billy's already here. Because you were already doing Fry and Zoidberg, right? I mean,
Professor. I was doing the Professor and Zoidberg. They hadn't even talked about Zap yet.
Oh, yeah,
Because Phil was killed at that time.
That's right.
Phil Hartman.
So yeah, Zap Brannigan was going to be Phil Hartman.
And I tried to do a little bit of an homage to him, but I did meet him before I came to California. He called my house in New York. I was driving home from the Stern Show, and I checked in, what's going on? My wife said, you know who just called here looking for you? Phil Hartman. And I was like, V, I know quite a number of gentlemen that can pull off an elaborate flight, including myself. How do you know it wasn't me? And she said, no, he called. He was on the set of News Radio, and he left a number. I was like, whoa, you know? So I get home, I call him up, and he said, I just called you to tell you that I'm a big fan. And I said, well, I kind of know who you are, too. I said, you took the spark plugs to that car when you left Saturday Night Live. You know, this car's still sitting there. And he said, you know what, you ought to come out to California. I was thinking about this, because I hear you, and, you know, you do well out here. And he said, I'll help you get you acclimated. Can you imagine what a secure person that is? No insecurity, and very generous, probably as an actor, too.
Oh, yeah.
But as a person, to just do that, you know, and I eventually got out there, we did an M&M's commercial. He was in one, and he was Chucky Bar. You know, this melted candy bar that came in, you know, by the poolside, and says, hey, look at me, and then he starts melting. But that was the thrill. But then I found out what happened, and it was a stunner. It was a stunner, and so they eventually came on and said, listen, we were going to have Phil do this character, Zap Brannigan, if you want to try it. And what I discovered with Phil Hartman was that we both, when we talked, we both had a love of those big dumb announcers from the old days. You know, you could tell they were lying because they were moving their mouth. You know, they were always talking at you. You know, like beating you with words. Tonight at the Worcester Centrum at 7:30. You know, that was all that phony baloney, and he was fascinated with that. He played big pompous announcers, and you know, and I was well aware of it because of all the dumb disc jockeys I worked with. I was there. I was like a little dumb announcer. You know, they were a big dumb announcer, and I was a little raptor. I was more facile, like, but I was a little dumb announcer. And you know, and then I started to do the Zap character, and I thought of those mannerisms that those guys had, and I brought that to them. People said, "Well, you really sound like you're doing Phil Hartman, but
you're not.
Not exactly.
It's not a Phil Hartman voice. It's a Phil Hartman style.
Yes.
I mean, that's the thing.
Based on very commonality of voices from our different
Yeah,
childhoods.
yeah, I mean, his character in Newsrooms. You know, Dave, you know, he had that sort of pompous, but emptiness. You can always hear the hollowness within the person.
Well, he knew those guys so intimately. He was an ad agency guy, you know. It was like, glad to see you. Don't kick the tires. Mr. Guides. Yeah,
he's a hard person to follow because I did the Pee Wee show.
Right.
And I played the part of Cowboy Curtis in a revamped version of the Pee Wee Herman show. Now the original Pee Wee Herman show, yeah, we did it on Broadway. But originally, the show didn't have Cowboy Curtis in it. It had Captain Carl, played by Phil Hartman. And when Paul adapted the stage show, he basically put Cowboy Curtis in the Captain Carl role. It's like, well, I can't have someone else play Captain Carl. I mean, he had the same problem. It's like, this is a thing for Phil. And also, Phil co-wrote the Pee Wee Herman show. I mean, the guy was incredibly talented on so many levels. And so some of the lines that I had in the Broadway show were his lines, and it was almost impossible to get his voice out of my head.
Oh,
you know?
right.
You know, and it's interesting because you're playing these same beats, and it's like, well, I can't do it any better. So I'm just actually going to do, the same beats, and it's funny, there's just, sometimes you're under Captain Carl, that big voice he's doing, Pee-wee!
Yeah.
I was like, no, bring it back.
No, he fell.
But I found myself at times like, I'm just going to steal. I'm going to steal the beat, I'm going to steal the rhythm, because I can't do it any better than he did.
True, and you're also dialing up one of the spirits of the show, one of the energies of the show. I have to say, and I never get to say this, but Phil is awesome. This Phil, my Phil. He's awesome. You have quite a range on you, Mr. Man. And people were saying that now. You didn't used to come out to these shows. I used to come out years and years ago to these shows, and they'd ask about you and Mo, and they were following what you did. They knew what voices you did. Yeah, the preacher pod and all these wonderful incidental characters. You probably want to lavish them with a couple of those.
Well, boy, there's not been a time. On a Sunday, I got to be in church.
That's a holy roller. Yeah. And he also has that melisma.
That's exactly it. Well, it's the same thing. I mean, it's based on
gospel.
It's based on my uncle.
Oh!
Did I tell you this?
No.
Preacher Bot is based on an uncle of mine who is pretty much a cartoon character. He was like a round circle for a head, and a round circle for a body, and like full on big old mustache, and then the MC Hammer glasses.
And they would do all of this to this little church of people.
Did you take a cliche class? Come up with doing something that's exactly the same as hundreds of other people.
He was the real deal.
Well, yeah, everybody else was copying him.
His lineage. Well, those are guys that were just always trying to fire up the crowd, right? The Majesty!
Right.
And I see these guys, the white ones blow. Just remember, in the Old Testament, I sinned against you, my Lord.
They don't have the rhythm. It's the rhythm that gets the crowd up.
They also have secrets. I remember one year when everybody started screwing up.
Oh yeah.
And I would just every day I would say, gee, I'd love to see Jimmy Swaggart with his pants around his ankles. Getting caught in a motel with a hooker.
Oh,
I got my wish. So I said, I have this power. I started wishing for other stuff. Oh, I'd like to see Fun Hall.
Jim Baker, right?
Yeah, but who's the Jessica?
Jessica Hahn.
Jessica Hahn. I said, oh, I wish I could see Jessica Hahn naked. She's in Playboy, because of the whole Jim Baker scandal.
This was pre-internet.
What should I wish?
Nowadays, when you wish, you could just Google it.
What should I wish for now? I I have
Well,
power.
the funny thing is, you said that the white preachers have the secrets. The black preachers don't have secrets.
No.
Everybody knows. Oh well, that's preacher Winkins, other woman. Well, see, but he real respectful. He don't drive his good car with him.
Yeah, it's like they're really understanding.